It's all about efficiency. When someone says, I don't have the time, that's actually not a correct statement. They just don't have enough desire. If it's important to you, you'll make time. If it's not, you'll make an excuse. But not just that, the impact of your hour is you can actually change that. Have you ever realized that in 1 or 2 hours, you can do the work of 6 hours because you're in the zone, or what we call the zone or the flow?
Welcome back to the Dental Economist Show with me, Mike Huffaker. Today, I'm joined by Dr. Tarek Aly, periodontist, dental entrepreneur, DSO builder, and partner COO at Guardian Dentistry Partners, partner at Modern Smiles Dental Group, and Community Dental Partners. Tarek has authored 3 publications and currently is in process of writing his 4th, focusing on the management of dental practices and DSOs. Welcome to the show, Dr. Aly. How are you?
I am fabulous, Mike. Thank you so much for your time and being on this amazing podcast.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I know one thing about how you're doing. You're busy. You've got a lot going on. To start, can you share a little bit about your journey from becoming a dentist to becoming an entrepreneur and what that has entailed?
I started by having Egyptian parents. And if you know anything about Egyptian parents, you don't negotiate with them. So if they say you're going to be a doctor, you're going to be a doctor, right? There's no other options. I really wanted to be a businessman or a pilot, but because my parents wanted me to be a doctor, so I just joined dentistry reluctantly because it was the shortest route, to be honest with you, to having a doctor by my name. And then I fell in love with it, but I still had that love for business in general. So after I became a periodontist, I worked as a periodontist for a year. I worked as a general dentist first and then a periodontist for a year. And then I thought, why not? Let me get an MBA. I learned so much about the business aspect of running a healthcare. And I married both the business side and the clinical side. And that's how I started.
So our VP of marketing at Planet DDS, his name's Mehmet. And before we got on this call, he's from Turkey. And he said, listen, he's like, Dr. Aly, he's from Egypt. He's like, I just want to let you know, like, he might not have had a choice. He might have had to become a dentist. It's good to know. Mehmet has his finger on the pulse there. So I'm curious, you're working on a lot of things. You're involved in multiple DSOs. You're very active in the dental industry. What right now are you most excited about?
Mike, I realized early on how underserved a lot of communities are, and also growing up in Egypt and seeing how hard it is to actually get quality of care. And then when I moved to America, I thought it was much better, which it definitely is. But I realized that there are tons of underserved markets out there. A lot of people that can't even afford insurance. And if they can afford insurance, it's very hard. They put a penny over a penny just to get a filling done. So when I first started my career in Texas, I realized that we are truly making a difference. We've had patients that didn't even have shoes on. I mean, we worked multiple different facets of patient base in general, from the financially capable to the none, from Medicaid to fee-for-service. So I realized that this is actually a worldwide issue. People don't even understand their benefits, and they don't get the access of care. So I thought, hey, why not use that business background in actually scaling up dental services? And then I realized that only 60% of Americans go to the dentist. And also the dental care that is being provided, especially in rural communities, has not been optimal. Of course, it's decent, but it's not the best. So I was so excited about promoting dental health. And then later I realized that the dentists themselves needed help. They know how to be a good dentist, but they don't know how to scale up and grow and provide the excellent quality of care at the lowest possible cost and grow their business, hire more team members, grow in multiple communities. So got excited about educating the dentist. It's also a business. You can make good money and you can serve the public and make an impact. And they're not they don't work against each other. They actually work together. So I'm actually excited about both the patient aspect of things and growing that awareness for dental care, but also the dental community and growing that, making sure that we have the best dentist out there.
A lot of really great observations there, and calling out the challenge with underserved communities as well. Just recently in a conversation I had with Ray Caruso, he pointed out something that I hadn't thought about, and it was related to first impressions and how much dental plays a part in the ability of somebody to be successful throughout the course of their life, because you can be judged by your oral health and your teeth. And so, there's all these children and younger individuals that don't get that care. You really have the opportunity to make a huge impact on their life.
Absolutely. And you see that specifically with orthodontics, that the younger kids are being picked on by their peers because, kids have no filters and they don't have the social skills developed. So they pick on their peers, and it starts early on. So you're creating a generation of children who don't have enough self-confidence. And it definitely translates in how productive they are members of society later on. 100% agree with Ray.
If you're a clinician, you come out of dental school, and you're looking to find a practice to work in, is there less of an opportunity to make a good living if you are serving underserved communities? Is that a concern, or is that a thought that some may have when they're contemplating, where they want to work and where they want to practice dentistry?
Actually, believe it or not, being involved in multiple DSOs in so many different areas, I have this data, and they actually make more in underserved communities. There's so much volume of patients. So, if you look at, historically speaking, in the compensation packages in general, the package itself is usually more because it's underserved and it's harder to get to. But not just that, even if the compensation structure was the same, they make significantly more. Even practices, if you start a practice in an underserved market, immediately you break even very quickly. There's so many patients that drive 50, 60 miles just to see you. There's no competition. There's lack of access to care. The cost of doing business is significantly less. You don't need to do marketing. Everybody knows where you are in town. You don't have to do these awareness campaigns like, hey, I exist. And then after the awareness, there's the interest. Like, hey, let me interest you with how I can make your life better. And then the desire phase, and then the action. You don't need to do any of that. Immediately you start and grow. So to answer your question, they actually are better financially in rural communities.
What would you attribute the fact that there are still underserved communities out there with so many benefits on both sides, and there's really a need? Why does that still continue to exist?
So look back at your younger self, Mike, and my younger self. In your late 20s, early 30s, you just graduated and you're carving your path. You're most likely going to be wanting to live in New York, Dallas, Houston, LA. That's where the big life is. And most likely, if you're single, you wanted to network. And if you're married, or have kids, you want your kids to be in a higher tier schools. So there's a tendency to go into bigger markets despite the financial disadvantage. You're paying more in cost, you're making less, but there's still that tendency. But then in hindsight, when they get older and they look at their peers that actually started in rural communities, like, oh my gosh, they've accumulated wealth. They now have 2, 3 locations, and I'm still here working as an associate somewhere in LA or downtown Austin. So a big part of it is actually the behavior or the mentality of the young dentist.
I'm curious, as somebody that has experience doing this, what is it like to manage multiple DSOs? Like, how do you know? And maybe this is a bigger question just about your entrepreneurship in general. How do you know where to focus your time, and how do you kind of structure your weeks?
So it started with I wanted to create systems and processes that actually do the work instead of you spending time in it. It's all about efficiency. When someone says I don't have the time, that's actually not a correct statement. They just don't have enough desire. If it's important to you, you'll make time. If it's not, you'll make an excuse. But not just that, the impact of your hour is you can actually change that. Have you ever been in 1 or 2 hours? You can do the work of 6 hours because you're in the zone, or what we call the zone or the flow. That of itself is a science, how to get in the flow, but also systems and processes. Any repeatable process or any repeatable event can be systemized, where you don't necessarily have to spend time, energy, effort, and money on. You just build the system, and the system works for you. And that's automation. That's the world of AI now. You can automate a lot of things, and we can talk about the advancements. So the short version of the answer is, if you first create a mission that you're passionate about and your eye is always on the ball with the mission, to create a process and a system that makes your time very impactful versus spending so much time and not a lot of impact. 3, measure the KPIs and the outcome and compare it to where you need to be. Always keep your eye on that measure. And 5 is the feedback. Always take feedback and reform and improve how the process is. And believe it or not, you can do almost double or triple what you're doing today with the right approach.
You just mentioned KPIs, and that's always a really hot button topic. Every dental conference I go to has a session on KPIs. There's a lot of viewpoints on, what those North Star metrics should be, what's most important to measure. And I think what often gets left out is, what do you do with the data? How do you act upon the information, even if you know the KPIs, which I think also is a struggle for many. If you could distill down, look, you're an emerging group, you're just launching, you've got a handful of practices, here's what you need to make sure that you know in order to grow, what would that guidance be?
How many times have you looked at an organization that they're not tracking their KPIs? It's definitely sad. Why would you drive a car without looking at your gauges? You could be out of gas and you had no idea. If I'm a pilot, would you fly with me if I'm not looking at my gauges? Absolutely not. I wouldn't. Why would we run our businesses not looking at our gauges? So understanding the importance of them is the step one. After step one, okay, well, there's a reason there's a K in the KPI. There's at least 1,000 PIs we can track, but you have to be focused on what is the key performance indicators. And it starts with defining them into buckets. The first one is strategic, the big picture. What markets do I want to serve? What's the patient milestones do I want to have? What's my exit strategy if I want to exit? What, maybe I have a net worth kind of KPI, strategic, big picture, right? And then the operations KPIs. And the operations KPIs, they can also sit in buckets. HR KPIs, you want to track staff efficiency metric, you want to track retention rates. There is marketing KPIs. Well, obviously you want to track your new patients. Obviously you want to track the cost of acquisition of new patients, and you want to track the lifetime value of the patient. There is procurement KPIs, supplies percentage and things like that. There is revenue cycle management KPIs, collections percentage, adjustments percentage, whether they are positive or negative adjustments, credit or debit adjustments. You want to track DSO, or days of sales outstanding. You want to track aging, whether it's 30, 60, and 90. So there's a lot of them. We can talk for hours, but depending on the stage of your business cycle, where you are right now, and also what's important to be impactful. So, and then of course the financial KPIs and all that stuff, we can talk about it for hours. So to answer your question is, you have to go back to your playbook. What is really important to move the needle in my business? And then once you laser focus on that, the top 5 or top 10 playbook items, and then find what are the KPIs associated with them and what needs to happen to move the needle on each one of them. And of course, each individual practice is different, or each individual business is different.
So you're somebody who I would consider really has their finger on the pulse of the industry. I'm curious, as we've finished Q1 of 2024, from your perspective, what's the sentiment out there? Are people feeling good about things? Are they thinking that they're doing well? Is it really a mixed bag? Is there some concern? What are your thoughts?
I am a very optimistic guy, and I always look at the bright side. So I'm a little bit biased in the optimism world, but I'll tell you, I'll try to not to be optimistic and be realistic. Remember, we are in healthcare. Healthcare is one of those that always stand the test of time and is not very sensitive to market fluctuations. They are sensitive. And of course, some departments or some specialties in dentistry are very sensitive to market fluctuations, especially higher end dentistry and things like that. But in general, we are not. Remember COVID? We were shut down for a few weeks and we were back on. And some of us never shut down at all because it was essential. So regardless, we're not elastic to the market demands. We are to some extent. So generally speaking, it's heading in the right direction. We talked about also that only 60% of Americans, and the data for the world is not very sharp, but anywhere between 20 and 40% of the world population go to the dentist. So there's a giant virgin land of opportunity out there that hasn't even been scratched, the surface scratch. So awareness for the general public will double. I told you I'm optimistic. So, and then also from those dentists that serve the 60% population, only 25%, or depending on who you ask, is group dentistry or organized dentistry. So there's like giant opportunity out there. But also remember, there's a few amazing trends coming up. Technological advancements. So you have digital dentistry, you have teledentistry coming up strong. You have AI and imaging and AI technologies coming up strong. There's demographic trends. There's aging population that need dental work, that didn't have the dental needs done when they were younger. That's going to increase demands. You have increased health awareness right now. You've heard of TikTok and Instagram and Facebook and all that stuff, and how people feel about their looks, and how the rise of all cosmetic stuff, not just dentistry, cosmetic stuff went up. So that's a giant demand for the dental industry that is being created. There's economic and insurance factors. A lot of insurance companies right now are consolidating, and they're holding hands with medical insurances, not just dental, because dental is a small slither, and in the world of insurance is not much, but they're teaming up now to create alliances, which is helping us significantly spread the word. There are regulatory and policy changes that are happening now that are making it a lot easier. There's consumer preferences and behavior in the dental world. We can talk for hours, and not just my optimistic nature. This is science and data-backed evidence trending us in the right direction.
Yeah, that's a great list of reasons to be optimistic, and a whole lot of opportunities for value creation as well. The one thing you mentioned that I had seen an article that I had read about, and that was the kind of increase in cosmetic procedures and the additional focus with this generation. And the explanation that I read was there has been no other generation that's grown up staring at themselves so frequently as what we have now. And I was like, I don't know if there's any truth to that. But as somebody that's on Zoom calls and other meetings, and it's, I try to block out your own view, because you end up just kind of like, wow, you get a really good understanding of what you're looking like from a day to day. So that might play some small part into it.
Yes, and if you're not just looking at dental, look at other stuff, like how many apps with filters came up recently. How many? There was this episode on Shark Tank where this lady had this idea of a slimming mirror. She's selling a mirror that makes you look slimmer. Like, if you think about this, it's a reflection of the market. This is what people want. So that's an indication that, hey, for all of you naysayers out there about the direction of the dental world, I can ease your concerns that we're heading in the right direction.
I heard a quote also that I really enjoyed, and it was something along the lines of, pessimists sound smart, optimists get rich. And it resonated. It was like, hey, yes, if you come up with all the reasons why you can't succeed, you might sound very intellectual, and it might be a great conversation. But at the end of the day, those that are out there seeking ways to make through and have that success are ultimately the ones that become that. So
yes. And if you think about it, all of us in the dental industry are entrepreneurs by nature, and entrepreneurs are optimistic, because if you were not an optimistic, you will never ever start a business. You definitely had pros and cons list, and you chose that the pros are bigger than the cons. So that's why you started a business and you started an office. So we are optimistic by nature. Ask me again when you read the comments section on YouTube or Facebook. But generally speaking, the population is optimistic.
That's right. You just stay away from those areas. Like, it does nobody any good. It's not good for our mental health. It just drop it and go. Speaking of being entrepreneurial by nature, you've got some big projects that you're working on. Can you share a little bit about what the DSO Academy is, as well as the Dental Science Alliance?
Yes. So I'm working on this giant project that I've been working on for years, and it's definitely a lot bigger than I thought it would be. It became a giant. It's called the DSO Academy. I teamed up with Gary Bird and a few other amazing industry leaders and experts in their fields. And the story behind it is that we wanted a one-stop shop for education. evidence-based, database, science-based education in the dental industry for all fields. HR, IT, procurement, operations, compliance, and we brought experts in each of those disciplines to give courses, kind of like a masterclass, if you've ever heard of masterclass. And it is actually masterclass quality, believe it or not. We did not skip on that. It's done by professional course creating company. As an expert, we ship them to California to do the shooting there. We have content creators, we have copywriters that all they do is create and enhance the content that the experts provided. And it's a subscription base, and it's broken down by either specialty or by position or by topic. So if you're an office manager and you want to be promoted to a regional manager, you take a specific track with multiple courses in different disciplines and you upgrade. It's a giant project, and we've shot a few courses, and we're about to roll out soon.
That's a massive project. I sense that that's something that you come up with the idea. You're like, this sounds amazing. Let's do this. And then you start digging into it, and it's like layers upon layers. And it's like, at what point do you draw the line? Like, where is it like, okay, this is good to release? You said it's going to launch soon. Is that right? Do you have a date?
Definitely, we can't launch all disciplines at once. So we decided to launch 2 or 3 disciplines with multiple courses in them. And then we're going to build as we go. But also because of the cost, it's a giant project. It's hundreds of thousands of dollars for us so far. Just the cost of shooting the videos and the expert time and all that stuff. So it's we're rolling it out in stages, and eventually it's going to be basically a university.
That's incredible. So it'll all be digital, self-guided. You go to a site, you pay a subscription, you're able to go and access the materials. There's probably different modules, things along those lines.
That's accurate. That's correct. Yes.
And how would you describe the audience for it? Is this going to be for executives? You mentioned an example with an office manager, somebody that was looking to level up their skills. Kind of, how do you think about that?
It's actually everyone in the dental industry. If you are a marketing team member who just started in marketing and you want to get into dentistry, if you are an accountant or a bookkeeper who wants to elevate their knowledge about the dental world, you are an office manager, regional manager, a director of operations, a COO, if a dentist and you're building your first practice and you want to understand how the world of DSO works, there is a legal discipline, there is accounting, there's IT, HR, procurement. So all these things that you can educate yourself, and it's different levels. So you can be 101 or you can be, obviously as an office manager, you got to get a taste of each. But as a CFO, you're going to be concentrated only on the accounting piece.
No, that's great. I just had Gary on the podcast a couple of weeks ago. That is a very high energy individual.
Yes.
So I would imagine somebody good to partner with to make sure that you're
Yes.
getting things done and things are moving along.
Oh my gosh. Without Gary, this would have not launched. I don't know what kind of batteries this guy's on, but whatever it is, I want it. He's always active. Every meeting we have, he's on a treadmill. He makes like a lot of social media videos, and he has all these meetings, and he has 1 million clients. I don't even know. If you think I do too much, you got to talk to Gary.
When he first jumped on the call, he was moving, and I was like, "You have one of those standing treadmill desks, don't you?" And he's
Yes.
like, "Yeah, I do almost like 15 miles a day." It's like that's not insignificant. That's a lot of walking.
No. I know.
So yeah, that's good.
It's crazy,
that's awesome. That sounds like a really interesting project. What can you tell me about the Dental Science Alliance as well?
Yeah, so this is a coaching platform. So the DSO Academy is mostly online. It's you do it at your own pace, and there's certificates and all that stuff. But the Dental Science Alliance is mainly coaching. So I connected with some of the best coaches out there and industry experts. Some of them already did courses in the DSO Academy. And we said, hey, how about a high touch point, one-to-one kind of coaching platform that has all the disciplines out there, and the member has access to all of it. So you sign on as a member for a monthly fee, and you get access to everybody. Charles Mosier, Gary Bird, Eric Roman, just big names that are seasoned in their discipline, whatever it is their specialty is, and you get one-on-one time with them, which I don't think exists in the industry, because a lot of times the knowledge itself is not sufficient. How many workout routines have you downloaded from the internet and done nothing with them, right? So the key here is not the know-how. The know-how is important, but it's not the missing factor. Sometimes you kind of need that accountability person that actually holds your hand and said, hey, it's time for you to do this. So the Dental Science Alliance is basically a community of coaches coming together to help members or dental industry in general get to the next level.
Explain a little more how that works. So if, for instance, I'm having challenges with marketing, I can sign up and I can get actual one-on-one time with an expert like Gary. Is it based off of a subscription type of model, or is it an initial kind of consult fee? Is it really like to provide access to education?
So basically, the member joins and they have all these coaches they can pick from. So you have an issue with marketing, but I'm sure you also have something in accounting, and there's definitely something in operations, and you have a question in HR that may come up next month. So you have access to this calendar of coaches, and you put yourself on the calendar, all included in the membership, as many times as you want, as long as they have booking available. And that's it. You have access to all disciplines, and it's not just you. You can actually have your team member as well. So if it's a discipline or a department that you're not heavily in touch with and your regional manager needs to ask the question, so be it. With the same membership, they can also have access to the operations coach.
Got it. And so I would imagine to scale at some point, you're going to need to have a pretty broad assortment of coaches available. Ideally, there's going to be significant demand for this. You'll have a number of people that want to take part in the service. Obviously, you can't have the same person be booked over and over and over. Most individuals that really impacted schedule already. What's kind of the long-term vision for what that ultimately ends up looking like?
Yeah, you scale it in both ways. So if you're scaling up in the members, you're scaling up in the coaches as well. So you don't necessarily have to have one coach in marketing. You could have multiple, and they post their availability on the platform, and you as a member, you select whoever you want to see or meet with, and that's how it works. And of course, all of them are top quality coaches. They have a rating system where at the end of the coaching session, in every session, you rate your coach. There's notes. So if there's exchange of coaches, everyone knows exactly what was talked about. The sessions were transcribed, so it's easy to follow through. It's well thought of. It's also a giant project that has been in the works for a minute.
You're also writing a book about DSO management, and you have a lot of experience in that, a multitude of approaches, right? And there's DSOs structured in many different ways. When you're providing management or coaching, you must have your view of what the right approach is. And when I say like many different ways, it could be, I spoke with somebody that their practices are open from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. every day, which is unusual. Well, like most groups do not have hours like that. I've spoken with groups that are open on Sundays as well as 7 days a week type organizations. Some look to centralize all of their technology and make sure that every office uses the same. Some don't have that same kind of mission. Others want to do call centers. Others want to have centralized billing offices. Others want the billing to remain within the individual practices. I could go on and on and on about all the different kind of variations of how you structure. Do you have kind of like a high level view of what you think the best approach is? Or when you're trying to coach or manage, or you're writing a book on how to manage a DSO, is part of that having flexibility and being open to the fact that there may be different paths that work out best for you?
Absolutely. And if you think about it, it looks like the bullseye, the target sign, the bullseye. The inner circle are the must-haves for a successful business, that regardless of what your size is, what your specialty, who you're serving, you're going to have those, the core values, right? And then the circle after is the circle that could have some variations. They're good to have. Maybe they're must have in some organizations, maybe they're not, but things to consider in order to scale. And then the circle after that, and so forth. So you want to, and of course you can't cater the information to everyone, because you have to deliver the information in a science and data approach, and not subjective or opinions. If you have evidence for it, then it is a methodology that we can rely on. If we don't have evidence for it, then it's your opinion, which could be true or could be not, right? So I try to keep the core very evidence-based and science-based and data-driven. And then everything after, like, hey, if you are a pediatric dental group servicing some of these markets, these techniques may work, or this kind of discipline will be optimal.
I like the comment about it's your opinion. We've actually, over the last couple of days in a variety of meetings that I've been in, we've talked about different things that we were looking to understand better. And I would say, like, hey, do we have a data point surrounding that? And sometimes the answer is no. Anecdotally, this is what we think is actually happening. And our senior director of marketing, she goes, I'm just going to start calling that anecdata. And I said, I love that, because we're getting too much of like how I feel about things or what I think is happening. We need to dial into a little bit more like understanding of, is this actually what is occurring?
This fits in really with my passion, which is KPIs. I'm very obsessed with data because data help you make the right decisions.
There's so much data available out there. Do you suggest kind of taking a sidestep to technology here for a second? We know there's the Dental Intels of the world, and the Jarvises, and there's lots of data available through different PMS solutions that are available. Do you typically suggest that somebody use something outside of what's available within their practice management? Probably varies widely what you can get from a solution. But I think a challenge for a lot of people is actually getting the data front and center in the first place.
Right. And also it depends on what practice management software you're using, because historically speaking, no one in the market was really strong. But then recently, we're seeing significant miles of difference between 10 years ago and now. And you're seeing those PMSs starting to get more savvy and advanced, and they're listening. Back in the day, they weren't really listening. And also, when we were looking at it from a group dentistry perspective, when you want to manage multiple locations, you were a very insignificant piece in the market. They're catering to the single mom and pop dentist, who is the vast majority of the market, and they haven't heard anything from them. So like, oh yeah, why should we listen to you and change? But now it's completely different, and they are understanding the needs of the market. So we are seeing that. Now, does it cater to all of your needs? Maybe not. Maybe yes. Maybe some of them have, but the vast majority, no. You're going to have to, at some point, take some different data and you slice it and dice it somehow and consume it. It's not just, let me view some KPIs because I'm a cool guy. No, you're going to be cooler if you actually make impact by using and consuming this data. And also, what your office manager sees is different than what your regional, than what your CFO sees. Has to be somewhat segmented based on the audience, because you don't want them to have all the noise of seeing all the other data. It's nuanced and complicated. To answer your question, is their PMSs are getting a lot better. They're amazing in so many ways. Sometimes you need external help to consume the data.
Yeah. What other technology, it could be software, it could be anything, are you just excited about right now in the dental space?
AI, man. It's just going so fast that we don't know what's going on next. I was in this conference a few years ago, and I saw this Japanese, can't remember if it was Japanese technology or something, that was so like a bite block that you put on the tooth, and it actually drills in the tooth. And it does the whole work. It does the scan. It's crazy. Can't remember. I actually tried to go back to find out what company was that, but I can't find it. But imagine this at a scale, or imagine something where AI now is connecting with X-rays and diagnosing it and help you diagnose, and then utilizing this data to do a differential diagnosis and analysis on what needs to be done. And then there's some sort of a tool we've seen in medical now. They have the Da Vinci and a few other devices that remotely a surgeon can work on stuff. What is coming? Our imaginations can't even fathom what is coming. So I'm excited about that, to be honest with you.
Yeah, it is really exciting. And you're right. It's every week it's something new, just across the entire globe. It's not even dental specific. It is pretty exciting to see. You mentioned some of the applications that are used currently today. Have you had much experience using, or have you tried out any of the kind of decision assistance tools that either like Vidya, Pearl, Overjet, Denti? There's a lot of companies kind of doing that now. Have you formulated yet an opinion on the value that they bring or not? Like, I'm just kind of curious what your perspective is on that.
Yeah, they actually bring a lot of value, but also I'm an early adopter and I like to see what the new technology is, and I don't quit easy. We like to give chances and make sure that, we've studied all the factors. A lot of them, if not all of them, are amazing in so many ways. And they're not just that, they're advancing so quick. So it's hard to give an opinion because your opinion is a week old. They've changed so much. Just like practice management softwares, I see a lot of consumers out there bashing or talking negatively about one or the other. But if you actually go talk to the team now, they're completely different than before with their mentality and how things are different. So, yes, we've had good luck with some of them, and they are on a great path.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think there's also, I hope, kind of a sea change related to philosophy with cloud practice management softwares, where there's a greater willingness to create a more open platform. And honestly, it's going to need to take place if you want to stay relevant, because the technology, as we've just talked about, goes so fast. Like the providers themselves can no longer build everything inside one platform. The one size fits all notion, there's not one DSO that's the same DSO everywhere. Why do you think that the software could also be one size fits all? It doesn't seem to make a whole lot of sense from a logical perspective. So, a lot of our view is like, we don't want to stand in the way of innovation. So you have to be able to have interoperability, but that's been not delayed necessarily. It just hadn't been a priority, but I think it's starting to change kind of across the board, which is exciting for dental. And hopefully everybody gets there, because it will allow to plug in all these great technologies that you're seeing without having roadblocks thrown up right and left and otherwise.
If everyone focused on their core competency and perfected it, then you're going to have so much collaboration. You don't have to create everything. Just do one thing really well and let me do my thing really well. And then let's hold hands and everyone wins.
Absolutely. Taking just a step away from dental for a second, hopefully you don't mind. I noticed that you have triplets. As you're raising triplets, is there any parental advice? Lots of the people that listen to the show are parents. What are the things that you're most focused on right now? Like, and the advice that, like, if you could pick just maybe one or two pieces of advice that if it stuck, you'd be like, hey, that worked. Like, I know a lot just kind of goes in and out. What would you really want the takeaway to be?
Systems, KPIs, and feedback.
There we go. All right. Fair enough. Fair enough.
So I love it. I don't know any different. To me, parenting is triplets, meaning that when a lot of my friends who have one kid or two kids say, "Hey, I don't know how you do it," you know what? That's all I know about parenting is triplets. When you make a sandwich, you make three, right? You're used to it. But I think it's because the new generation now has access to so much information that we didn't. That provides a lot of challenge to parents because you want to provide your guidance as well as want to make them open to the world and understand. So that's the biggest challenge. I feel like open communication, trust, and that dialogue has helped me significantly. But they're right now for sale, buy one get two free, and free shipping.
Awesome. Two last questions for you. The first is one that I personally have somewhat struggled with over the years, and I'd be curious as to your perspective, and that is the notion of work-life balance. You have so much going on. Does it exist? Do you care if it exists? If you enjoy your work, does it even matter if there's work-life balance? And kind of how do you think about that concept?
Yeah, you know what? You touched a subject that I love because I was on a journey to actually understand that. Going from the Eastern world to the Western world and realizing the definition of success is different in the Western world. So if you say someone's successful in the Western world, they always think material success. They think, oh, they have money or material success. And it's a little bit different. So I tried to read a lot on it and understand. And I realized there's actually 6 factors of life success. There is the family life. There's the love life. There's the health and fitness, which is mental and physical. There's the social life. There is the spiritual life. And then there's the reasonable financial prosperity. And being the data freak that I am, I created a list of KPIs or measurable indicators in each one of them to guide me to how to get there. So, for example, family life. Well, how many times do you see your mom and dad, actually physically see them, not just call them on the phone? And if you're going to call on the phone, how frequent, or video or whatever it is? Spend time with kids, family travels. So these are actually measurable targets. I put the current status versus the ideal scenario, and then a path to get there. Same thing, with love life. Okay, how many dates did you go out with your wife without kids or distractions, right? When you're with her, are you on your phone, or are you actually being present? Things like that. You could put measurable indicators. Health and fitness. If how many hours a week did you work out, or how many races did you sign up for, or whatever it is that fits your health goal. So these are the 6 factors that I kind of put as my North Star. And given the freak I am about the data points, that's what I did.
I wouldn't say freak. I would say it's just incredibly intentional on a level that most people don't get to, because it's a lot of work also to even like put down on paper what you anticipate or what you believe to be that North Star of where you're looking to go. So you kind of have defined for yourself each of those areas, what is the balance that you seek that will kind of fill into the relationship that you have with your wife and your other interpersonal relationships, while still keeping you healthy and doing all the things that you enjoy. Is this something that you look at like often? I'm very fascinated by this. It's very interesting.
Statistically speaking, those who actually put goals are more likely to achieve them. It's kind of like, let's say you want to run a marathon, or you want to lose weight, or whatever it is, a goal. Those who actually put a mission, a goal, a number, are those who got, even if they didn't achieve it, but they got super close. So I thought, okay, well, if my relationship with my parents is not as good because I live thousands of miles away, how can I make that better? So my current status sucks. My ideal case scenario is I'm with them 24/7. It's not super ideal, but let's say, a target, right? Then how do I get there? So that's why I thought you have to put a goal in order to achieve it.
So last question. I can tell that a core focus of yours is always growing. Like you're always exploring new things and working on different things. Where do you go to learn? Do you have any books, any podcasts? It could be anything, but I'd just be curious as to like your perspective on that.
So the learning is a very vast topic, and there's so many facets of learning. I start first with what is it that I want to learn, right? The goal. And if it's career, I typically go first to the unexpected, which is networking. I learned so much from those who were took the steps before me, and that's golden, because they tell you exactly what happened, what not to do. If that's not available in your world, which I think it is now very available, you can reach out to anybody. In my beginning of my career, I started actually emailing and texting DSOs, much bigger DSOs, about questions and revenue cycle management and things like that. And they said, come on board. Let's, it was completely free. And they were so open. I was very surprised. So that's the first thing I do, is networking and wise ones and smart ones. And then if that's not available, usually books are very good guidance, but they are more general than specific. They're more of like, in that general topic, how can you get better? So it needs a little more in depth. And then of course, podcasts or specific topics that you can look at, whether it's a YouTube video or something that tells you specifically how to tackle this specific item, that helps significantly. And of course, without a coach, I think everyone has to have coaches. It's the accountability piece more than the information. If I meet with you every week and I'm accountable to you by getting something done, regardless whether you are the one giving me the information or not, I know I'm meeting you, and I know I'm going to look bad, so I need to get better. So coaching helps significantly as well.
Dr. Aly, thank you so much for joining. I really, really appreciated the conversation.
Thank you. It was a pleasure. I appreciate you, Mike.
The Dental Economist Show is brought to you by Planet DDS. To find out more about how cloud-based dental software by Planet DDS helps unleash dentists and their staff to focus on patient care, visit www.planetdds.com. Stay tuned for upcoming episodes by following wherever you listen to podcasts. Thanks for listening.